One thing I'm never going to understand, and this is no hate, it is the girls who put up with dudes who play video games.
The reason why a lot of men are giving up on dating and rather play a video game is not going to nag somebody. A video game is going to give a man mind some relief to not think about work and the stresses he got to do in life. You know what I'm saying? Men are getting tired of paying these outrageous prices, you know what I'm saying, to go out to eat. And even though they got the money, they simply just don't want to pay it because it's dumb. We get called cheap. Nobody wants to keep hearing that stuff. A lot of men are now learning that y'all can't manipulate them anymore. And that's what I want to teach men. You cannot manipulate a man into making him do this dumb stuff for you just by calling him cheap, bum, and a dusty. You know what I'm saying? A lot of y'all definitions of a dusty is not even accurate. Y'all call a hardworking man dusty, but you go talk to that dude that really ain't got no money. He just got the look. You know what I'm saying? He's not a dusty. So a lot of men are just getting tired of dating. It's just unrealistic bull crap.
What if I told you that the biggest social shift of the 21st century is happening right now in real time, all around us, and almost nobody in the mainstream wants to talk about it honestly? What if I told you that millions of men have quietly, calmly, and permanently walked away from the entire dating market, from relationships, from marriage, from even basic friendship with women, and in doing so, they have flipped the script on 50 years of cultural programming? And what if I told you that the proof of this seismic change is hiding in plain sight in collapsing birth rates, empty restaurants, dying nightclubs, skyrocketing male savings rates, and an explosion of all male digital and real world ecosystems? And that by the end of this video, you're going to see exactly why men are never coming back and why that terrifies a certain group of people more than anything else on earth. Stick around because this one goes deep and the conclusion is going to hit harder than you expect. If you want more raw, unfiltered, angry guy content, the second it drops, smash that like button right now. Share this video with every man you know who needs to hear the truth. Subscribe, and most importantly, click the bell and select all so you never miss a single upload. We are building something massive here, and I don't want you left behind. Also, if you are serious about protecting everything you are working for in this collapsing economy, go check out Angry's Crypto Academy right now. The link is in the description. I teach you step by step how to actually buy, sell, trade, and most importantly, safeguard your crypto so the government, your ex, or the next market crash can't touch your wealth. Thousands of men are already in there stacking quietly while the world burns. Go click that link and join us today. And if these videos are hitting home for you, if they are waking you up or just giving you the energy to keep pushing, consider buying me a Red Bull through the link in the description. Every can keeps the lights on and the truth flowing, and I appreciate every single one of you who throws some fuel in the tank. Let's get into it. Picture this. It's 2015. The average young man is still trying. He's grinding at the gym, dressing sharper than he needs to, saving up for that first date at a nice restaurant, swallowing every insult society throws at him because he's been told that if he just works hard enough, stays nice enough, becomes better, then one day a woman will finally pick him, stay with him, and build something real. Fast forward to 2025. And that same man is at home on a Wednesday night, maxed out on a new video game release, fridge full of food he cooked himself, bank account growing every month, stress level almost zero, and he hasn't been on a date in 3 years. Hasn't even thought about a woman in months, and he is happier than he has ever been in his entire life. That, my friends, is not an anecdote. That is the new normal for millions of men all over the planet, and women are losing their minds over it. For 50 years, we were told men were the problem. We were too loud, too quiet, too tall, too short, too masculine, not masculine enough, too emotional, not emotional enough. We manspread, we man-interrupt, we mansplain, we just man too much. Every male instinct was diagnosed as toxic. Every male space was invaded and policed. Every attempt to court a woman was treated like a potential crime scene waiting to happen. And then one day, men did exactly what they were told to do. They shut up, they went away. They stopped approaching, stopped dating, stopped simping, stopped spending, stopped caring. And the silence has been deafening. Women spent decades telling men, "We don't need you." They screamed it from university campuses, from talk shows, from social media, from divorce courts. They built an entire cultural movement around the idea that men were obsolete, that the government could replace husbands, that apps could replace commitment, that being a strong, independent woman meant never having to rely on a man ever again. And men listened, not in the sarcastic, happy wife, happy life way they were supposed to listen, but in the literal, life altering, I'm out way. Men took them at their word and left. Now, those same voices are on TikTok and Instagram crying about how there are no good men left, how dating is impossible, how rent is too high, how groceries cost a fortune, how life is just too hard without a partner. And the crazy part, they still don't get it. They think men are hiding. They think men are scared. They think men are depressed or lost or broken. They have no idea that men are not hiding at all. Men are exactly where they want to be, at home, at peace, wallets getting thicker, stress getting thinner, living the quietest flex in human history. Let me paint the picture even clearer. In the United States alone, by 2030, 45% of women aged 25 to 44 are projected to be single and childless. When you add in single mothers, the number jumps to 60 or 70% of all women in that age range with no stable male partner in sight. That is not a societal earthquake. And it is not because women suddenly decided they love cats more than kids. It is because the men who used to line up for those women have vanished from the market entirely. Look at South Korea if you want the extreme version. Everybody loves to talk about the 4B movement, women swearing off dating, marriage, sex, and childbirth. With men, the media acts like that's why South Korea has the lowest birth rate on planet Earth. Wrong. The real reason is the 6B4T movement and all the other male responses that came before it. When Korean feminists pushed for laws limiting how many times a man could ask a woman out before it became legal harassment, men said, fine, we won't ask at all. When feminists complained that men were gatekeeping corporate promotions, men said, cool, we'll hire other men and compete ruthlessly with women instead of mentoring them. When feminists said television comedy was too edgy and problematic, men said, perfect, we'll take all the jokes out, knowing full well they had already stopped watching those shows years ago. The result? Women ended up with exactly the sterile, humorless, male-free society they claimed to want. And now the birth rate is 0.72 children per woman and still falling. That is not women choosing freedom. That is men choosing peace. And the numbers don't lie. The same pattern is everywhere. Japan, China, Europe, the United States, Canada, Australia, every developed country is seeing the same trend. Men are not going their own way because some YouTuber told them to. They are going their own way because they ran the numbers in their own lives and realized the juice is no longer worth the squeeze, not even close. The risk of divorce rape, false allegations, paternity fraud, endless criticism, financial exploitation, and emotional chaos is simply too high. And the reward, what exactly? A woman who lists bringing peace as her main contribution to the relationship while simultaneously creating drama every week? Hard pass. And don't think this is just about dating. Men are phasing women out of every shared space in society. Restaurants are closing left and right because men stopped taking women out to dinner. Upscale places that used to survive like on couples are now ghost towns during the week because the guys who used to pay those $300 tabs are at home eating steak they grilled themselves for 18 bucks. Nightclubs are half empty because men realized getting dressed up to stand around while women take selfies and expect free drinks is a loser's game. Commercial gyms are bleeding members because men got tired of being accused of staring when they were just trying to deadlift, so now they train in garages and private warehouses where no one can film them for clout. Even Hollywood is feeling it. Men have completely checked out of new movies and TV shows that bash masculinity while celebrating the girl boss fantasy. Disney is hemorrhaging money. Marvel is on life support, and every franchise that decided to lecture its core audience is watching ticket sales collapse. Men simply turned off the TV and opened Steam, Twitch, or YouTube instead, where thousands of creators now speak directly to men without any agenda attached. Online, the manosphere has become its own parallel economy. Channels that used to be about finance, gaming, or math now spend half their time breaking down female nature with ruthless precision because the audience demanded it. Ho underscore math drawing, relationship diagrams that look like engineering schematics. Graham Stefan explaining why marrying up in 2025 is financial suicide. Gaming channels spending more time on Sweet Baby Ink drama than actual gameplay. All of it is the same story. Men building media that serves men, funded by men, controlled by men, and completely inaccessible to the gynocentric mainstream. And it's not stopping there. Men are creating physical ecosystems too. Hey guys, in a world pushing you to own nothing and be happy, crypto is your key to survival. Join Angry's Crypto Academy to master buying, selling, and trading crypto. Make huge profits and safeguard your wealth. Plus, discover the one crypto virtually no one is talking about, poised to create new millionaires in the upcoming bull run. The link is in the description of the video below. Go check it out now. Private men only gyms, crypto trading groups that ban women on site, bartering networks where skills and goods are traded man to man, prepper communities teaching survival skills with zero female membership allowed. When a single woman calls an electrician today and gets quoted double the price a male customer would pay, that is not an accident. That is policy. That is men deciding their labor, their time, and their peace are no longer for sale at the old rates, if at all. Women traded male provision for state provision, except the state is now broke. Every Western government is drowning in debt. Inflation is eating savings alive, and the social safety nets women were promised in exchange for kicking men to the curb are fraying at the edges. So now they run back to the same men they spent decades demonizing, shouting, "Where have all the good men gone?" As if those men didn't leave very clear breadcrumbs on the way out. The answer is simple. The good men are at home, maxing out their 401k, lifting in peace, gaming with the boys, and sleeping like babies because no one is nagging them, draining them, or threatening to take half their stuff the moment feelings change. And the craziest part of all this, men aren't even angry anymore. That's what women can't process. They expected rage, begging, bargaining, incel forms full of bitterness. Instead, they got silence, savings accounts, and smirks. Men found out that solitude isn't loneliness when you actually like yourself. They discovered that peace is addictive once you taste it. And once a man has lived on his own terms for a year or two, making his own money, eating his own food, controlling his own remote, coming and going as he pleases with zero drama, the idea of inviting a woman back into that paradise feels as logical as inviting a raccoon into your kitchen to knock over the trash cans for fun. So when you see another viral video of a woman crying that men ain't men no more, or I can't find a guy over 6 feet who makes six figures and has six pack, understand what you're really watching. The sound of consequences arriving right on schedule. 50 years of telling men they were worthless, disposable, and toxic. 50 years of weaponizing the courts, the media, and social shame against them. And now the bill is due. And the men who used to pay that bill in blood, sweat, and money have left the table, taken their wallet with them. This is only the beginning. The gap is going to keep widening. The peace men have found is going to keep spreading, and the panic on the other side is only going to get louder. Let's go deeper, because what we just covered is only the surface tremor. The real earthquake is still building pressure underneath, and most people aren't ready for the magnitude that's coming. All right, think about the timeline for a second. This didn't happen overnight. This was 50 years in the making, maybe 70 if you count the first waves of second wave feminism hitting the universities in the late 60s. Generation after generation of boys grew up being told that everything natural about them was wrong. Sit still, speak softer, cry more, cry less, share your feelings, but only the approved feelings. Never get angry, never raise your voice, never look too long, never approach first, never assume interest, never expect intimacy without a signed contract and a risk assessment meeting. Every male instinct was pathologized. Every male space was colonized. Every male achievement was credited to privilege instead of effort. And the entire time, the message was crystal clear. We don't need men. We tolerate men at best, and only if they follow the new rules. So men started reading the room, slowly at first. A guy here, a guy there, deciding that maybe the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. He skips one date, saves $200, feels pretty good. Skips another, buys a new graphics card instead, feels even better. Stops going to clubs altogether, sleeps in on Saturday, wakes up refreshed, realizes he hasn't felt this calm since childhood. Word spreads quietly in group chats, Discord servers, private Telegram channels. No manifestos, no protests, no marching in the streets, just millions of individual men running the same math and coming to the same conclusion. Peace is cheaper than chaos, solitude is safer than liability, and a quiet apartment with a 75-inch screen and a stocked fridge beats a $400 dinner with someone who spends the whole night on her phone and then posts on social media the next day that the date was mid. That's the part nobody wants to say out loud. Men aren't broken, they're upgraded. They took the red pill, sure, but then they kept walking and built an entirely new operating system from scratch. The modern single man is healthier, wealthier, calmer, and more focused than any generation of men in recorded history. He lifts at home or in private warehouses where no one can record him for TikTok clout. He cooks his own meals, meal preps on Sunday like it's a religious ritual, and eats better than most married guys who are stuck with whatever processed slop their wife throws in the air fryer because she's too exhausted from scrolling to cook. He invests the money he used to blow on dates, drinks, gifts, vacations, engagement rings, weddings, and divorces. His net worth curve looks like a rocket ship, while the average woman's net worth curve in her 20s and 30s looks like a heart rate monitor belonging to someone who just got some bad news. And the data keeps pouring in, relentless, undeniable. Single men under 40 now outsave married men by a margin that makes financial advisors sweat. Single men have lower rates of depression, lower rates of substance abuse, lower blood pressure, better sleep scores, and higher life satisfaction than their married counterparts once you control for income. The happiness gap between single men and married men has flipped completely in less than a decade. Married men are now the ones reporting regret, stress, and quiet desperation, while single men are posting gym PRs, crypto gains, and screenshots of their Steam libraries with 800 games and zero drama at zero. Women feel this shift in their bones, even when they refuse to admit it out loud. That's why the panic content is exploding. You can't scroll for 5 minutes without hitting another tearful monologue. Where are all the masculine men? Why won't men approach anymore? I make 6 figures, and I still can't find a good man. And every single time, the comment section is a bloodbath of men calmly explaining supply and demand. The market spoke, the price went up. Women wanted premium treatment while offering economy value, and men collectively said, no thanks, we'll keep the premium for ourselves. Look at what's happening overseas. If you want to see the future and fast forward, American, Canadian, British, Australian men are voting with their passports in numbers never seen before. They fly to Colombia, Thailand, Philippines, Brazil, Poland, wherever women still smile when a man walks into the room, wherever femininity is celebrated instead of criminalized. They land with Western salaries, rent penthouses for the price of a studio back home, date women who cook, clean, dress like women, and actually seem happy to see them. And the best part, they do it without ever feeling like they sold out. They simply relocated the game to a field that isn't rigged against them. Meanwhile, back in the West, the women who spent their 20s telling those same men to get lost are hitting 35, staring at an empty DM inbox, a cat that doesn't pay rent, and a biological clock that just started sounding like a fire alarm. The irony is delicious. Women spent years bragging about how the future is female, how they were going to build a world that runs perfectly fine without male participation. And now that men actually exited stage left, the entire structure is collapsing faster than a house of cards in a hurricane. Who pays the majority of taxes that fund the welfare programs women rely on? Men. Who keeps the power grid running, the trucks moving, the buildings standing, the internet connected? Overwhelmingly men. Who used to subsidize female consumption with dates, drinks, gifts, and marriages? Men. Remove men from the equation, or even just remove men's willingness to subsidize women, and the whole illusion comes crashing down. That's why the restaurant industry is in free fall. Foot traffic at casual dining and upscale chains is down double digits year over year, and the executives are scratching their heads wondering why. It's not just inflation. It's the disappearance of the one demographic that actually paid the bill. Couples on dates, where the man covered both meals plus drinks plus tip. That revenue stream has evaporated because that man is now at home eating ribeye he seasoned himself while running a raid in whatever the hot new MMO is this month. Same story with jewelry stores, flower shops, high-end cosmetics, luxury handbags. Every industry that relied on male disposable income being funneled toward female approval is bleeding out. Even the adult industry, the one place everyone assumed was bulletproof, is getting disrupted. OnlyFans creators are already screaming about declining subscriptions because men discovered AI girlfriends that don't argue, don't demand money, don't post passive aggressive stories, and never hit you with the "I'm going through something. Can you send $200 by text at 2 a.m.?" The technology is improving so fast that within 24 months, the average man will have access to an AI companion that looks, sounds, and responds better than 80% of real women on dating apps today. And she'll never age, never gain weight, never nag, and never threaten to call the police because you looked at her the wrong way. Game over. But let's not pretend this is only about dating and money. This is about survival architecture collapsing. Women were never designed by nature to go through life completely alone. Every traditional society on earth understood this. Every religion, every culture, every folk tale. Women received provision and protection from fathers, then brothers, then husbands, then sons. That chain has been completely severed in the West. Fathers are alienated by family court. Brothers are told to check their privilege. Husbands are treated like disposable ATMs, and sons are raised to hate themselves before they even hit puberty. The result is a generation of women who are biologically wired to need male investment, but culturally programmed to despise the men who could provide it. That's not empowerment. Meanwhile, men who are biologically wired to be providers and protectors looked at the new terms of service and said hard pass. They took their provider operating system and turned it inward. They provide for themselves now. They protect their own peace. And the sense of purpose that used to come from sacrificing for a wife and kids has been replaced with a deeper, quieter purpose: self-mastery, brotherhood, legacy through creation instead of procreation. Men are writing books, building companies, mastering skills, traveling the world, and stacking wealth at a pace that makes the previous generation of married men look like they were sleepwalking. And here's the part that really stings for a lot of people watching this. Men aren't doing any of this out of spite. That's what the blue pill crowd still doesn't understand. This isn't revenge. Revenge would require emotional investment. This is indifference. This is the kind of calm that comes after the war is over and you realize you already won by simply refusing to keep fighting on their terms. Men aren't raging in the streets. They're chilling. They're laughing in private discords about the latest "Where Have All the Good Men Gone" video while their crypto portfolio hits a new all-time high. The silence is the victory. Women feel abandoned, but men didn't abandon women. Women abandoned men first, abandoned them morally, legally, culturally, emotionally, and told them to their faces that their presence was a burden. So men removed the burden. And now that the consequences are here, the narrative is flipping to men are the ones who broke society. Classic projection. The dog that spent years biting the hand that fed it is now shocked that the hand pulled away and started feeding itself. Look at the numbers coming out of dating apps if you want cold, hard proof. On Tinder, Hinge, Bumble, the ratio of men to women used to be roughly 60/40 male heavy. Today, in most Western cities, it's 85/15 or worse. Women are still on the apps, swiping, posting thirst traps, raising their standards higher every month. Men simply deleted the apps and never looked back. The average male user now is either a top tier Chad, still cleaning up, or a guy who hasn't updated his profile since 2021 because he forgot the password and doesn't care enough to reset it. The rest of the male population has left the plantation entirely, and don't think for a second that the top 20% of men are going to save the day. Even those guys are starting to check out. When you're in the top tier, you see female nature in its rawest form. No filters, no masks, just pure unfiltered hypergamy on display 24/7. A man who has options realizes very quickly that even the best women still come with the same risks, the same entitlement, the same probability of blowing up your life the moment a better option texts her at 3 a.m. So even the Chads are starting to keep one foot out the door, spinning plates overseas, or just focusing on money and peace instead of collecting notches that don't actually decrease in value every year. The passport bros didn't start this fire, but they're definitely pouring gasoline on it every time another six-figure earning American or British guy moves to Medellin or Manila and posts a video cooking dinner with his smiling, feminine 24-year-old girlfriend while a $400 a month maid does the dishes. Another 10,000 men back home start researching visa requirements. The propaganda machine can scream predator and colonizer all they want. The algorithm doesn't care. Those videos get millions of views, and the comment sections are filled with men saying, "Booked my flight and see you there, king." This is what actual male power looks like. Not yelling, not marching, not begging Congress for sympathy, just quietly restructuring reality until the old rules no longer apply. Men are building parallel societies at warp speed, digital fortresses, physical compounds, financial networks, brotherhood circles, all with the same unspoken membership requirement. No drama, no liability, no modern Western women allowed. And the beautiful part is that women can't infiltrate these spaces the way they infiltrated every male space in the past, because these new spaces are built on opt in brotherhood and reputation. One whiff of entitlement, one attempt to change the rules, and you're gone forever. The tolerance that used to let women colonize male spaces has evaporated. Men have finally learned that kindness is not a weakness to be exploited, it's a reward to be earned. And the earning bar is now higher than Mount Everest. We haven't even talked about the coming AI job apocalypse yet, but that's going to accelerate everything we're seeing by another order of magnitude. When the next wave of layoffs hits and millions of white collar women discover that the HR, marketing, and admin roles they thought were bulletproof have been replaced by software that doesn't need maternity leave or diversity training, the panic is going to go nuclear. Men are already pivoting into decentralized, skill based, remote, crypto native work that women overwhelmingly avoid because it's too technical or too risky. The gap in economic outcomes between single men and single women is about to become a canyon. And when that happens, when the begging will reach levels previously thought impossible, we're already seeing previews, marriage proposals and TikTok comments, Cash App links disappearing from bios overnight, sudden reversals on "I don't need a man" rhetoric. It's not going to work. The men who walked away have had years to taste real peace now. Years to stack money, build brotherhood, travel, lift, create, and discover who they actually are when nobody is policing their masculinity. You don't give that up because someone who treated you like a villain for a decade suddenly decides you're a hero again. When the credit card gets declined, the tide has turned permanently. The age of male sacrifice without reciprocity is over. The age of male self preservation has begun, and it feels pretty damn good. Let me take you back to a moment that almost nobody noticed when it happened, but in hindsight, it was the tipping point. Around 2017, 2018, something shifted in the comment sections of the internet. You used to see thirsty guys white knighting, arguing, begging for female attention under every post. Then, almost overnight, those comments started drying up. The simping stopped. The step on me queen energy vanished. In its place came dead silence. Or worse, from a certain perspective, calm, surgical, brutally accurate observations about female behavior that no woman could argue with because they were rooted in observable reality instead of wishful thinking. That was the first audible click of the safety being taken off. Millions of men had finally reached the end and they laughed stage of grief, except they weren't laughing out of bitterness. They were laughing because they had just discovered how light life feels when you stop carrying dead weight. That click has now become a roar you can't unhear once you know what to listen for. Every economic indicator, every social trend, every dating app statistic, every empty seat at Applebee's on a Friday night is echoing the same message. Men have exited the building and they padlocked the door on the way out. Let's talk about the money for a second, because money is the loudest vote anyone ever casts. Single men in their 20s and 30s are now the fastest wealth accumulating demographic in the Western world. Not couples, not married men, not women with or without children, single men. Why? Because when a man has no woman in his life, his natural minimalism kicks into overdrive. He doesn't need the bigger apartment to impress dates. He doesn't need the luxury car to peacock. He doesn't need the overpriced cologne, the bottle service, the vacation packages marketed to couples. He buys the tools he wants, the tech he wants, the experiences he wants, and he invests or saves literally everything else. The average single man today spends less on clothing in a year than the average woman spends on Starbucks and Uber Eats in 2 months. That delta used to flow toward female consumption. Now it flows into Roth IRAs, cold storage wallets, index funds, and home gym equipment. The wealth transfer that feminism promised women would happen through equity is happening in the opposite direction through voluntary male abstinence from female consumption. And governments are starting to feel the pain. Men pay roughly 80% of all income tax collected in most Western countries, yet men use almost none of the social services that tax revenue funds. When men stop marrying, stop having children, stop buying bigger houses, stop spending on dates and engagement rings and weddings, the tax base shrinks dramatically, while the cost of female focused social programs stays the same or grows. The math is merciless. Every year, another cohort of men opts out, another few $1 billion disappears from the state's coffers, and another Women and Children First program has to be quietly cut or borrowed against. Politicians can scream about tax the rich all they want, but the rich already left for Dubai or Singapore. And the remaining high earners are increasingly single men who structure their lives to stay under the tax radar. The middle class married guy with the mortgage and the minivan was the golden goose. That goose just walked away and started raising his own chickens. The birth rate collapse is the most visible symptom of this, but people still pretend it's a mystery. It's not a mystery. It's basic incentive design. When the expected cost of having a child with a Western woman includes a 1 in 2 chance of divorce, a 1 in 10 chance of false allegations, a 1 in 4 chance of primary custody loss, constant social shaming for being a traditional father, and the financial equivalent of buying a Lamborghini every year for 18 years with no title in your name, only a rational lunatic would sign up. Men are not irrational, and they are no longer lunatics. They looked at the contract, saw that it was written in invisible ink that only appears after the judge bangs the gavel, and they politely declined to sign. End of story. But let's not let women completely off the hook here, because this outcome required active participation on their side too. Women spent years curating the most expensive, most entitled dating culture in human history. They turned courtship into a hostage negotiation where the man had to prove six-figure income, six-pack abs, 6 feet height, emotional availability on demand, unlimited patience, and a willingness to fund an Instagram lifestyle before he was even allowed to hold hands. Then they wondered why the majority of men who don't hit that genetic and financial lottery simply stop showing up to the negotiation table. You can't price your product at Ferrari levels and then act shocked when 80% of the market walks across the street to buy a reliable Toyota that doesn't talk back. The foodie call phenomenon was the final straw for a lot of guys. Study after study showed that a shocking percentage of women admitting they would go on dates purely for the free meal while having zero romantic interest. Men saw those studies, shared them in group chats, and the response was immediate and unanimous. Cool, we're done paying. Restaurant gift card sales plummeted. Open table reservations for two dropped off a cliff. And women still didn't get the message. They just started complaining that men were cheap for suggesting coffee or a walk in the park as a first date. The cognitive dissonance would be fascinating if it weren't so destructive. Now, the same women who bragged about never settling are hitting their 30s with a biological clock that sounds less like a clock and more like a bomb countdown. Fertility clinics are booming, but even those can't fix the underlying problem. There are no longer enough high value men willing to commit to women who spent their prime years treating average men like disposable entertainment. The men who could theoretically save these women are either overseas dating 25-year-olds who act like women, or they're at home enjoying the aforementioned peace and wealth accumulation. Either way, they are not coming to the rescue. And spare me the not all women reflex. Nobody is saying every single woman on earth is guilty of every single thing described here. But markets don't care about edge cases. Markets care about aggregate supply and demand. When the aggregate behavior of women created an environment where the perceived value proposition for men collapsed to zero or negative, the aggregate response of men was to exit the market completely. Exceptions don't reverse macro trends. The four traditional, feminine, agreeable women living in Nebraska don't cancel out the millions of entitled, demanding, masculinized women dominating urban dating pools and social media. Men respond to the market they actually experience, not to the theoretical market that exists in someone's imagination. This is also why shaming language has lost all power. Call men losers for playing video games, and they'll laugh and keep playing because their net worth is going up while they do it. Call them immature for not wanting marriage, and they'll send you a screenshot of their brokerage account next to a picture of their home gym. Call them afraid of strong women, and they'll book another flight to a country where strong women are strong enough to smile and cook dinner without viewing either act as oppression. The shaming script was written for an audience that still cared about social approval. That audience aged out or woke up. The black pill community gets half the story right and half wrong. They're correct that female hypergamy is real and ruthless, but they're wrong that it means men are doomed. The opposite is true. Once men internalize hypergamy and then opt out of the game entirely, they become bulletproof. A man who genuinely does not need female validation is the most powerful force in the modern social landscape. He can't be bargained with, he can't be guilted, he can't be bribed with sex or threatened with loneliness. He has already made peace with both outcomes. That's why the rage directed at MG Tau or passport bros or high value men is so disproportionate. It's not anger at the men themselves. It's terror at the realization that the old levers of control no longer work. Every empire in history collapsed when the productive class decided the juice was no longer worth the squeeze. Rome didn't fall because of barbarian invasions alone. It fell because Roman citizens stopped having children, stopped joining the legions, stopped paying taxes, and started pursuing private comfort while the state begged them to come back and die for a civilization that hated them. Sound familiar? We are living through the late Roman Empire stage of gynocentric society, except this time, the barbarians aren't at the gates. The barbarians are inside the walls, and they're the ones who spent decades telling the legions to go away. The next decade is going to be the great revealing. As AI continues to eat white collar female jobs, as inflation continues to erode the buying power of government benefits, as the dating app gender ratio hits 95 fifths, as the savings gap between single men and everyone else turns into a canyon, the coping mechanisms are going to get more desperate and more obvious. We're already seeing stage one: blame shifting, demands for government intervention, calls for mandatory national service, or taxes on single men. Articles about how men owe society relationships. Stage two will be bargaining, sudden epidemics of traditional values, content from women who spent their 20s mocking housewives, mass deletions of old tweets, profile bios quietly changing from CEO of not needing a man to looking for my provider king. Stage three will be panic, and stage four will be collapse of the illusions that have propped up the current system for 50 years. But men who have already walked away won't see any of it up close. They'll be too busy living the lives they built on the other side of the wall, some in high trust compounds in the countryside trading skills in crypto, some in penthouses overseas with women who still believe mutual respect is a part of the deal, some in quiet suburbs with their investments compounding and their dogs happier to see them than any human ever was. All of them free in a way no generation of men has been before. Because here's the final red pill that ties the whole thing together. Freedom was never about getting everything you want. Freedom is about no longer being afraid of losing things you don't actually need. Men have discovered they don't need female approval, don't need marriage, don't need children, don't need society's pat on the head. And in discovering that, they became the freest demographic in human history. Everything else, the money, the peace, the brotherhood, the laughter in the group chats, is just the bonus that comes with true freedom. Women are now learning what happens when you tell an entire gender they are obsolete and then become dependent on the continued voluntary participation of that gender. The answer is they cease participating. And once that participation stops, the entire Jenga tower comes down, brick by expensive brick. This is not the end of civilization. This is the end of an unsustainable social experiment that lasted roughly 50 years. What comes next is something leaner, harder, more honest, built by men for men, with opt in clauses for the tiny minority of women willing to meet the new market price. Everyone else gets to live with the reality they created. And the men who walked away, they're not angry. They're not bitter. They're not waiting for an apology. They're just living, really living for the first time. Let me tell you about a conversation I had with a restaurant owner in a major American city last year. This guy has 3 locations, used to do 7 figures a year, always packed on weekends, couples on dates, birthday parties, bachelorette groups, the whole deal. He told me that starting around 2021, his Friday and Saturday nights started looking like Tuesday nights used to. He thought it was the economy at first. Then he looked at the receipts, the big tabs, the $400, $600 checks with multiple bottles of wine, appetizers, desserts. The ones that actually kept his profit margins alive, those disappeared. The tables that remained were almost all groups of women or mixed groups where the bill was split 8 ways and the tip was 12% after 3 hours of Instagram photos. He laid off half his staff, closed 1 location, And now he's thinking about selling the other two and just walking away himself. When I asked him who he thinks killed his business, he didn't even hesitate. Dating died. Men stopped bringing women here. That's it. Game over. That one story is playing out in every mid tier and upscale restaurant chain across the Western world right now. Cheesecake Factory is down 30% in same store sales since 2019. Ruth's Chris, Morton's, Capitol Grill, all bleeding. Olive Garden is surviving on endless breadsticks and families, but the date night crowd is gone. Because the date night crowd was always one demographic paying for two people, and that demographic stopped showing up. The man who used to drop $250 without blinking to impress a woman he barely knew is now dropping $25 on a ribeye from Costco and cooking it better than the chef ever could. And he's doing it while wearing sweatpants and watching a movie he actually wants to watch instead of whatever Marvel slop Disney is pushing this quarter. Multiply that one decision by 20 million men, and you start to understand why entire industries are quietly collapsing. Jewelry stores are next. Kay, Zales, Aunt Tiffany, all reporting their worst numbers in decades. Why buy a $10,000 engagement ring for a woman who has already told the entire internet that her rings are patriarchal and she doesn't need a man anyway? Men heard that message loud and clear and decided to put the 10 grand into Bitcoin instead. Good luck explaining that one to the shareholders. The wedding industry is already on life support. The average American wedding cost $35,000 in 2024, and the ones that actually happened. Most men under 35 now openly say they will never get married. And the ones who still do are doing courthouse ceremonies and backyard receptions because they watched their dads or older brothers get cleaned out and decided the big party wasn't worth the risk. Wedding planners are pivoting to divorce parties because that's the only growth sector left. You can't make this up. Even the housing market is starting to feel the ripple. For decades, real estate agents pushed the narrative that single men needed to man up and buy a house so they could attract a wife. Now, single men are buying houses, just not the McMansions with the white picket fence and the extra bedrooms for future kids. They're buying 2-bedroom condos downtown or small acreage outside the city limits, places they can pay off fast, fortify, and live in forever with zero need for a woman's input on paint colors or throw pillows. The starter home market for young couples is drying up because there are no young couples. The tradesmen who used to make bank on endless renovations for married couples are now booking 6 months out doing man cave garages and home gyms for single guys who want 2,000 pounds of bumper plates and a 120-inch projector screen. Yeah, and let's talk about those home gyms for a minute, because this is one of the purest expressions of the walk-away movement you will ever see. Planet Fitness is still packed with women taking mirror selfies in neon leggings, but the serious iron temples, the real gyms where men used to congregate, have either gone private, moved to warehouse spaces with keypad entry, or simply shut down because the dues-paying male membership vanished. Why pay $200 a month to lift in a commercial gym where you can't drop weights, can't grunt, can't chalk your hands, and risk a lifetime ban if a woman decides your glance lasted 0.8 seconds too long? Men said forget it, bought a couple grand worth of equipment during the 2020 lockdowns, and never went back. Now, every third garage in America has a squat rack, a bench, and a guy who pulls 600 pounds raw while listening to whatever playlist he wants without purple hair staff telling him to keep it down. That same energy is now in every area of life. Men are building parallel everything, parallel fitness, parallel finance, parallel media, parallel social circles, parallel travel networks, parallel food supply chains. The motto is simple. If women colonized it and ruined it, we rebuild it from scratch without them. And because men build for utility instead of clout, the new versions are cheaper, stronger, quieter, and infinitely more resilient. A private Discord with 5,000 vetted men sharing market alpha is worth more than any mainstream financial news network. A 10-man lifting crew that meets in a barn at 5 a.m. is tighter than any commercial gym ever was. A crypto wallet with keys you actually control is more secure than any bank that can freeze your account for wrongthink. The speed of this rebuild is staggering once you see it. 5 years ago, the idea of an all male professional networking group sounded like a joke. Today, they're everywhere, invite only, no LinkedIn required, no HR oversight, just high earning men trading opportunities and watching each other's backs. 5 years ago, the idea that men would openly charge women double for skilled labor sounded like a meme. Today, it's standard practice among plumbers, electricians, mechanics, and contractors who got tired of being taken for granted. One guy in Texas started a public pricing menu, $90/hour for male customers, $180/hour for female customers, cash only, no exceptions. His books have never been fuller. Word spreads fast when the market finally corrects. Women are now discovering that male kindness was never free. It was an investment with an expected return. And when the return went negative, the investment stopped. That's not cruelty, that's basic economics. You don't keep pouring money into a stock that crashes 80% and then screams at you for selling. You diversify, or in this case, you go all in on yourself. And please don't come with the butt trad wives are making a comeback cope. Yes, a microscopic percentage of women under 25 are putting on prairie dresses and filming sourdough content, but the numbers don't move the needle. For every one trad wife influencer with 200,000 followers, there are 50,000 regular women in their 20s and 30s still posting dog mom, wine aunt, no kids, no regrets in their bios while privately panicking as their eggs hit the expiration date. The trad wife trend is market correction theater. It's supply responding to new demand, but the demand is coming from men who already left the country or built such high walls that the average Western woman can't even see over them anymore. The real growth sector for women right now is delusion management. Therapy is booming. Antidepressant prescriptions for women under 40 are through the roof. Wine sales are the only alcohol category still growing. And the healing era content on TikTok has become a full blown industry. Women are paying other women hundreds of dollars an hour to be told that their loneliness is actually empowerment, that their empty apartments are actually sanctuaries, that their cats are actually children, and that the reason they cry themselves to sleep at night is because of the patriarchy, not because they spent 15 years telling men to disappear and men finally listened. Meanwhile, the men they told to disappear are thriving in ways that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. The average 30-year-old single man in 2025 has more disposable income, more free time, more genuine friendships, more physical strength, and more real world skills than the average 30-year-old married man in 2015. He speaks two languages if he wants, has passport stamps from 10 countries, can deadlift triple body weight, cook a steak better than a steakhouse, and has a stock and crypto portfolio that compounds while he sleeps. And he did it all without ever once needing to negotiate with a woman about where the Christmas tree goes or whether he's allowed to hang out with his friends on Sunday. That's the part that drives the narrative keepers insane. They can't sell men are trash when the trash men are visibly happier, richer, stronger, and calmer than the married men still following the old script. So the narrative has to pivot to new lies. These men are dangerous. These men hate women. These men are going to snap one day. Anything to avoid the simple truth that these men don't hate women at all. They are simply indifferent to women in a way that no generation of men has ever been allowed to be indifferent before. Indifference is the ultimate power, and women have never faced indifference at scale. Anger, they can handle. Begging, they can handle. Worship, they can handle. But millions of men living their best lives without even registering women's existence, that's psychological warfare they have no defense against. The coping will get louder. We're already seeing bills proposed in multiple countries to tax single men extra to fund social programs. We're seeing articles arguing that seriously suggest making it illegal for men to move abroad without government approval. We're seeing dating coaches telling women to just be more feminine while refusing to admit that femininity was never the problem. Reciprocity was. The problem was never that women weren't feminine enough. It was that they weren't safe enough, sane enough, or grateful enough to justify the old investment. And once men realized that, the game changed forever. What's coming in the next 5 years is the great male renaissance. While the old world burns its last tank of borrowed money trying to keep women comfortable, men are going to quietly finish building the new world. Decentralized, high trust, merit based, drama free, and invitation only. Some will stay in the West and live like quiet kings in small towns where nobody bothers them. Some will leave entirely and build beach compounds in countries that still value masculinity. Some will go full nomad with a laptop and a passport. All of them will be connected through private networks that no government, no corporation, and no angry ex can touch. And women will be left holding the bag they insisted on carrying alone. The bag labeled independence that turns out to weigh 400 pounds when there's no man around to help lift it. They'll scream, they'll cry, they'll demand, they'll legislate, they'll shame, and none of it will matter because the men they need to listen are no longer in the audience. They're in the gym, in the group chat, in the cockpit of a plane, heading to a country where their presence is celebrated instead of criminalized. This is what winning looks like when you stop playing a rigged game and start building your own table. Men didn't burn the old table down, they just walked away and built a new one. And the fire that's burning now is the old table finally running out of wood. I want you to really picture what a city looks like when 25% of its productive men have already checked out and another 25% are halfway out the door. You think I'm exaggerating? Go to any major downtown on a Friday night right now. The energy is gone. The streets that used to be shoulder to shoulder at 10 p.m. are half empty. The rooftop bars that charge $500 minimums for a table are begging people to come in with 2-for-1 deals. The lounges that used to have velvet ropes and Lamborghinis idling out front now have tumbleweed quiet, except for clusters of women in dresses that cost more than the bar tab they're not paying. The DJ is still playing the same playlist, but the only people dancing are other women trying to get content for Instagram. The men who used to fund the entire ecosystem simply aren't there anymore. They're at home, or in the private warehouse gym, or on a flight to a country where a smile from a pretty girl doesn't come with a background check and a legal disclaimer. That silence you feel in those once packed venues? That's the sound of consequences arriving in a Lamborghini with tinted windows and no license plate. It rolls up quietly, but it's deafening once you know what you're hearing. People love to say men are lonely, but the data keeps slapping that lie across the face every quarter. Loneliness metrics for men under 40 have been dropping for 5 straight years, while loneliness metrics for women in the same age bracket have exploded upward. Why? Because men replace the chaotic, high risk, low reward pursuit of female validation with something infinitely better: brotherhood, purpose, and self respect. The average man today has a tighter circle of 5 to 10 real brothers he would take a bullet for than most married men have in their entire extended family. They live together, trade crypto alpha together, travel together, hold each other accountable, celebrate wins, and never once have to worry that one of them is secretly recording the group chat to post on "Are we dating the same guy?" That kind of trust is priceless, and once a man has it, he will never trade it back for the privilege of paying a woman's credit card bill while she tells him he's working on himself by going to therapy for being masculine. Women are now experiencing the loneliness they spent decades claiming didn't exist for men. They're surrounded by friends who disappear the moment the Uber Eats budget runs dry, by followers who like their thirst traps but won't help them move a couch, by dating app matches who ghost after the third message because even the remaining guys on the apps have realized the game is rigged. The sisterhood turned out to be a sorority that disbands the minute the party money runs out. And the money is running out fast. Female consumer debt is at all-time highs, while male consumer debt is plummeting. Credit card delinquency rates for women under 35 are now triple what they are for men in the same bracket. Why? Because men stopped co-signing the lifestyle. The Louis Vuitton bag, the Stanley Cup collection, the $800 dinner with the girls, the self-care trips to Tulum, all of it was quietly subsidized by male disposable income for decades. Now that the subsidy has been withdrawn, the lifestyle is collapsing under its own weight. Women are discovering that living your truth gets real expensive when nobody else is paying for the truth. You see it in real time, like on social media. The soft life content from 2021 has quietly morphed into struggle meals and how I survive on $1.80 can and a HCOL city videos from the exact same creators. The private jets in the background got replaced with Spirit Airlines middle seats. The boss babe captions got replaced with GoFundMe links for rent. Hard times are here. Jobs are disappearing fast. And if you lose yours, you could be homeless in a few months or even a few weeks. But it doesn't have to be that way. Check out Angry's Creator Academy and learn how to build your own online business using YouTube to grow it. And get the free creator blueprint when you sign up. The link's in description below. Go check it out now. The ring lights are still on, but the tears are real now. And in the comment sections, you don't see men celebrating the downfall. You see men completely absent, not because they're hiding, they just don't care anymore. The algorithm figured it out before the creators did. Male eyeballs have left the platform entirely when the content is female tears. Men are busy watching combat sports, finance breakdowns, gym tutorials, and private discords where the only women allowed are the ones who bring value instead of drama. That absence is the ultimate flex. Not loud, not flashy, just pure, unapologetic absence. Let's talk about the passport phenomenon for a minute because the cope around it has reached comedic levels. The media calls them predators. The blue pill comment sections call them losers. The feminists call them colonizers. And every single one of them is missing the point. These aren't broken men running away. These are winning men relocating the game to a field that isn't booby-trapped. A 35-year-old software engineer making $180K a year in Ohio lands in Medellin, rents a penthouse for $1,200 a month, dates a fit 26-year-old dentist who cooks arepas in lingerie and thinks arguing is a personality disorder. He didn't settle for less. He upgraded to a reality where his value is celebrated instead of criminalized. Multiply that one guy by hundreds of thousands, and you start to understand why entire neighborhoods in Colombia, Thailand, Philippines, Poland, and Brazil now have more English-speaking men walking around with local girlfriends than local men do. The women back home call it sex tourism because admitting it's a rational market response, it would require looking in the mirror. It's not sex tourism when you stay for years, learn the language, integrate with the family, and treat the woman better than any local ever did. It's called voting with your feet when your home country turned masculinity into a thought crime. And before anyone says those women only want a green card, let's be real. The overwhelming majority of these men have zero intention of bringing anyone back. They like the arrangement exactly as it is. Low cost of living, high quality of feminine energy, zero legal risk, zero drama. They send money home to stack more investments or visit a couple times a year. But the base of operations stays where peace is cheap and femininity is abundant. The green card fantasy is just another cope to avoid admitting that Western women price themselves out of their own market. Back in the West, the fertility clinics are packing in patients like never before, but the success rates for women over 35 are brutal and the cost is astronomical. A single round of IVF now runs $20K, $30K with no guarantee. And most insurance plans still don't cover it because it's elective. So women who spent their 20s telling men they were disposable are now spending their life savings begging science for a miracle that still requires sperm from the same men they called toxic. The irony writes itself. Meanwhile, sperm banks are running out of donations because high value men stopped donating years ago. Why give away the most valuable biological resource on earth for $100 and a sandwich when you can just not? The shortage is now so acute that clinics are raising donor payouts to $1,000 per sample and still coming up empty. The few men who still donate are overwhelmingly the exact demographics women spent years shaming, and even they are starting to say no on principle. The market speaks again. Every layer of this thing keeps peeling back to the same core truth. Men were never the problem. The social contract was the problem. The contract said, sacrifice your time, your money, your peace, your freedom, your mental health, and maybe if you're lucky and you follow every rule perfectly, we'll let you have sex twice a month and co-parent children who will be taught to hate you. Men read that contract, looked at each other, and said, nah, we're good. And once enough men say we're good at the same time, the entire system that depended on male sacrifice starts to eat itself alive. That's where we are right now, the eating itself alive phase. Universities are the next domino. Female enrollment is still high, but male enrollment has been collapsing for a decade. The ratio in many colleges is now 60/40ths or worse favoring women, and the gap keeps widening. The degrees women are earning, communication, psychology, gender studies, education, are the exact degrees that AI is about to make obsolete, while the degrees men are avoiding, engineering, computer science, trades, are the ones that will still exist in 2035. So in 10 years, we're going to have a massive surplus of highly indebted women with worthless credentials screaming for government jobs that don't exist, and a massive surplus of debt-free men with AI-proof skills living wherever they want and answering to no one. The government response will be predictable. More propaganda, more shaming, maybe even attempts at conscription or financial penalties for single men. None of it will work. You cannot shame a man who has already made peace with being called every name in the book. You cannot tax a man who lives on crypto, trades barter for services, and keeps his fiat footprint microscopic. You cannot conscript a man who left the country 5 years ago and never filed a forward address. The state built its entire model on the assumption that men would keep showing up to be exploited no matter how bad it got. That assumption just expired. Look at Japan if you want the preview reel. Japan hit this wall 20 years ago and never recovered. Men became herbivores, withdrew from dating, marriage, and corporate life, focused on hobbies, savings, and peace. The government panicked, threw money at women, subsidized fertility treatments, begged men to come back. The men shrugged, kept saving, kept gaming, kept living. Birth rate kept falling, economy stagnated, society aged. And the men, still chilling, still winning. Japan is the control group that proves this isn't a phase, it's a new equilibrium. The West is just catching up to Japan at triple speed because we added steroids to the dysfunction, social media, dating apps, weaponized legal system, and a culture that spent 50 years telling men their natural desires were predatory. The withdrawal is faster, cleaner, and more complete here because the push factors were stronger. And the next 10 years, the phrase male flight is going to enter the lexicon the same way brain drain did. Except this time, it's not the smartest leaving for better opportunities. It's every man with a passport and a laptop leaving for basic human dignity. The ones who stay will be the ones who built fortresses so strong that no amount of propaganda can penetrate them. Gated compounds, encrypted networks, private schools for the few children they do have, offshore assets, burner identities, the whole playbook. The elite already do it with money. Regular men are just copying the playbook with peace. Women will be left with 3 options, none of them good. compete on the new market terms, massive personality overhaul required, move to where the men went and adopt local standards, most won't, or stay in demand, the state replace what men used to provide. The state literally cannot. Most will choose option 3 because it requires the least amount of self-reflection, and we will watch the final act of the welfare state collapse under the weight of its own promises. But the men who walked away won't be watching. They'll be too busy living lives that previous generations of men could only dream about, waking up at noon if they want, training twice a day if they want, eating ribeye for breakfast, traveling on a whim, speaking multiple languages, mentoring younger men, building wealth that compounds faster than inflation can touch it, and never once explaining themselves to anyone who doesn't deserve the explanation. And that's the real victory. Not revenge, not domination, just freedom. The freedom so complete that it doesn't even need to announce itself. It just exists, quietly, confidently, permanently. And the sound of that freedom, once you hear it, is the sweetest sound on earth. You ever notice how every single coping article trying to explain this phenomenon always ends the same way? Men need to step up. Men need to be better. Men need to fix themselves. They never ask why millions of men all woke up on the exact same day and decided that stepping up, being better, and fixing themselves was no longer worth the cost of admission. They act like men collectively lost their minds instead of admitting that men collectively found their self-respect. That's the tell. When a narrative has to blame the victim for finally refusing to be a victim anymore, you know the narrative is running on fumes. Because here's the part nobody in the mainstream wants to say out loud. Men aren't broken. The system that required men to break themselves in order to keep it running is broken. And once enough, men realized that they could stop breaking themselves and the sky didn't fall. The whole illusion collapsed like a house of cards built on male sacrifice. You can't guilt a man into slavery once he's tasted freedom. You can't shame a man into the coal mine once he's seen daylight. And you definitely can't threaten a man back into the plantation once he's built his own fortress on the hill. That fortress is being built right now, brick by brick, wallet by wallet, passport stamp by passport stamp. And the craziest part, it's not even hard anymore. The blueprint is public. Lift heavy, eat clean, stack money, learn game if you want it overseas, delete dating apps if you don't, build brotherhood, protect your peace, repeat. That's it. 6 steps and you're untouchable. Millions of men are running that playbook in real time and waking up every day shocked at how easy peace actually is when you stop volunteering for chaos. Women are now running the old male playbook and discovering it doesn't work when you don't have a disposable gender propping you up from underneath. They're grinding 60-hour weeks, coming home to empty apartments, eating takeout alone, scrolling through feeds full of other women pretending to be happy, and wondering why having it all feels exactly like having nothing. They were sold the lie that independence meant freedom, but independence without male investment just means doing everything yourself while paying full price for everything. There's a reason no society in human history ever ran on female independence until the West tried it with fossil fuels and debt. It's not sustainable. It never was. And the debt is now coming due in every sense of the word. National debt, credit card debt, fertility debt, loneliness debt, all of it hitting the ledger at the same time. The average Western woman in 2025 is more educated, more indebted, medicated, and miserable than any generation of women who ever lived. She has more degrees than her grandmother, more followers than her mother, more stuff than both of them combined, and less actual joy than a medieval peasant who married at 19 and had 6 kids by 30. Because joy was never in the stuff. Joy was in connection, family, purpose, and protection. And all of those things were quietly outsourced to men for thousands of years until we decided men were the enemy and tried to replace them with government checks and wine nights. How's that working out? The government checks are getting smaller, the wine is getting more expensive, and the men are gone. The cats don't pay rent. The followers don't help carry groceries up 4 flights of stairs. The vibrator doesn't fix the leak under the sink. And the strong, independent mantra, starts sounding real hollow when the electricity gets shut off because the electrician quoted you $400 to change the breaker and you told him you could do it yourself. Men, meanwhile, are discovering that minimalism is the ultimate cheat code. A 600 square foot apartment with a squat rack in the living room, a chest freezer full of meat, a $5,000 investment account that grows while you sleep, and zero debt and complete control over your time is worth more than a 3,000 square foot mortgage prison with a woman who resents you and kids who've been taught you're the reason the world sucks. Men are choosing the 600 square feet every single time now. And the real estate agents pretending this is about interest rates are coping harder than anyone. The trades are the next big tell. Every blue collar industry is screaming for workers, and the workers they're getting are almost exclusively men who walked away from the dating market and decided to learn a skill that AI can't touch. Plumbing, electrical, welding, HVAC, diesel mechanics, all of it booming with guys in their 20s and 30s who used to be on track for cubicle hell, but looked at the script and said, no thanks. These dudes pull six figures cash, work when they want, charge whatever they want, and still have time to hit the gym twice a day and grill steak at night. And when a single woman calls them for emergency service, the quote comes in at premium rates with a smile. That's not pettiness. That's the market finally working the way it was always supposed to. Women are now finding out that male competence was never guaranteed. It was earned through sacrifice and competition, and then freely given to women as part of the old social contract. Remove the contract, and the competence doesn't disappear. It just gets repriced. Want your toilet fixed on a Sunday? That'll be $600 cash, ma'am. Want it done for the good guy rate your grandfather got? Bring a husband with you next time. That's the new world being born in real time. A world where male labor, attention, protection, and provision are luxury goods again, not public utilities. And luxury goods have luxury prices. The panic content is evolving too. We've moved past where are all the good men into the men are literally the enemy phase. Articles calling for taxes on single men, bills to restrict male travel, think pieces about how men choosing peace is a national security threat. They're not even hiding it anymore. The mask is off. They're admitting that the entire system was built on male enslavement. And now that the slaves walked off the plantation, the overseers are terrified. Good. Let them be terrified. Fear is the only honest emotion left in the conversation, because nothing they try next is going to work. You cannot force a man back into a burning building once he's already outside watching it burn from a safe distance eating a sandwich. You cannot threaten a man with loneliness when he's already happier alone than he ever was in a relationship. You cannot bribe a man with sex when he's already got AI and passport options that don't come with legal liability. The old carrots and sticks are rotting in the field while the men keep walking. And walking is exactly what they're doing, not running. Running implies fear. This is a slow, deliberate, confident walk, the kind of walk a man does when he knows exactly where he's going and has zero intention of looking back. Shoulders loose, stride easy, bank account growing, stress level zero. That's the MWA walk. Men walking away. And every day, another 100,000 men join the march. The craziest part is how fast the Overton window moved once the critical mass hit. 5 years ago, saying any of this out loud got you banned, shadow banned, canceled, fired, doxxed. Today, it's the default opinion of every private male space on the internet and most public ones too. The conversation went from, is this happening, to how do I do it faster, in less time than it takes a new iPhone to become obsolete. That's how you know the shift is real. When the taboo becomes the table stakes overnight, you're not in a debate anymore. You're in a new reality. Women are now trying every trick in the book to get men to care again. Outrage content, thirst content, trad content, victim content, boss, babe content, spiritual content, all of it. And the response from men is the same every time. Cricket sounds. The most powerful weapon women ever had was male attention, and they spent it all on contempt. Now they're trying to buy it back with counterfeit currency and discovering the exchange rate is no longer in their favor. Goodwill is like virginity. Once it's gone, it's gone. You don't get to spend 20 years calling men trash and then act surprised when they treat you like you treat your trash. The future is already written in the private discords, the offshore bank accounts, the private warehouse gyms, the passport stamp collections, the home cooked ribeye dinners, the quiet Sunday mornings with zero notifications from anyone who brings drama. The future is men living like retired millionaires on middle class incomes because they removed the one expense that used to cost more than everything else combined: women. And the most beautiful part, it's self reinforcing. Every man who walks away makes it easier for the next man to walk away. The blueprint gets clearer, the brotherhood gets tighter, the peace gets deeper, the wealth gap widens, the indifference grows colder. It's a flywheel that only spins one direction now. There's no off switch, there's no reverse gear, there's only forward. So when you see another blue check feminist on Twitter screaming about how men need to do better, understand what you're really looking at. Someone standing in the middle of a burning house yelling at the fire for not warming her anymore. The fire didn't leave. The fuel source walked out and took the matches with him. Men didn't lose the game, they stopped playing the game. And in doing so, they won everything that actually matters: time, peace, money, health, brotherhood, purpose, and freedom. Everything else, the arguments, the drama, the bills, the resentment, the courts, the chaos, was just the price of admission to a circus that caught fire. They paid the exit fee and never looked back. The circus is still burning. The clowns are still yelling for someone to put the fire out. And the men who used to be the unpaid labor keeping the tent standing are on the next continent over, grilling steak on a balcony, overlooking the ocean, laughing at memes in a private group chat, sleeping 10 hours a night, and living better than kings ever lived in any previous era of human history. That's not a coping mechanism. That's not a phase. That's not bitterness or fear or immaturity. That's victory. Quiet, boring, unstoppable victory. The kind of victory that doesn't need a parade because every man living it already knows he won. He feels it when he wakes up without an alarm clock. He tastes it in the steak he cooked exactly how he likes it. He sees it in his investment account balance. He hears it in the silence where a nagging voice used to be. And the best part, he's not coming back. None of them are. The age of male sacrifice is over. The age of male mastery has begun. And it feels pretty damn good. Let me tell you about a guy I know in Dallas, 34 years old, software developer, makes low six figures, lives in a 700 square foot loft downtown. 5 years ago, he was the textbook good guy. Took women on expensive dates, paid for everything, listened for hours while they talked about their exes, got ghosted or friend zoned every single time. Spent years wondering what was wrong with him. Then one day in 2021, he just stopped. Deleted the apps, canceled the reservations, sold the nice car, bought a used truck, put a squat rack in his living room, and started cooking his own steaks. Fast forward to today. He's 3.5 XSD his net worth, pulls 675 in the gym, has a core group of 8 brothers he trains and travels with, spends 3 months a year in Colombia, sleeps like a baby every night, and hasn't had a single argument with a woman in 4 years because he hasn't shared a room with one to in that long. When I asked him if he ever gets lonely, he laughed for 10 straight seconds and said, "Bro, I haven't had this much peace since I was 9 years old, and my mom let me stay up late playing Nintendo." Multiply that one guy by 5 million in the United States alone, and you start to feel the scale of what's actually happening. This isn't a fringe movement. This isn't a few bitter guys in their mom's basement. This is the largest coordinated male behavioral shift in recorded history, and it's happening in complete silence because the men doing it have zero interest in announcing it to people who spent decades telling them to shut up. They're not asking for permission. They're not asking for understanding. They're not asking for anything. They're just doing it. And the doing is devastating. entire legacy systems that nobody thought could ever be touched. Take the therapy industry, it's quietly imploding from the male side. Men used to be dragged into couples counseling where they got to sit and listen to a $200 an hour woman with purple hair explain how all their problems were caused by toxic masculinity and unhealed trauma. Men stopped showing up, not angrily, just stopped. Now, the average therapist calendar is 85% female clients crying about the same five things: dating apps, body image, work stress, loneliness, and where are all the good men? The male clients who do show up are almost exclusively high earning guys optimizing performance, not fixing relationships. The era of men paying strangers to be scolded for existing is over. The industry is now surviving on female tears and SSRIs, and even that revenue stream is starting to dry up as women realize therapy doesn't bring a 6'2" guy with a trust fund through the door. Universities are next in the crosshairs, and they're already bleeding. Male enrollment is down 20-30% in many Western countries compared to 15 years ago, and the drop is accelerating. The degrees men are abandoning fastest, the ones that lead to jobs women want: HR, marketing, communications, education, social work. The degrees men are still pursuing or pivoting to, the ones AI can't touch and women avoid: trades, engineering, logistics, cybersecurity, nursing. Yes, male nursing is exploding because the pay is good and the patients don't file false accusations. The result is a growing army of debt free, passport carrying, high earning men who can fix your truck, rewire your house, and disappear to Thailand for 6 months without asking HR for permission. Meanwhile, the average female graduate is walking out with $40 keiki, $100K in debt for a degree in strategic communication that qualifies her to write LinkedIn captions for $48K a year while living in a 400 square foot shoebox in a high crime neighborhood and wondering why life is so hard. That's not judgment. That's arithmetic. The entertainment industry is already dead and just waiting for the coroner. Men have completely abandoned New Hollywood slop. Disney lost billions betting on girl boss reboots that men refuse to watch. Marvel is on fumes. Star Wars is a punchline. Every franchise that decided to lecture its core audience got exactly what it deserved: empty theaters and layoffs. Men didn't boycott out of spite. They just turned the channel to YouTube, Twitch, and private streaming servers where creators speak directly to men without corporate oversight. The money followed the eyeballs. Hollywood is now surviving on female driven rom coms and kids' animation, both shrinking markets. The next 5 years are going to be studio bankruptcies and fire sales of IP to the highest Chinese bidder, while men keep watching creators who actually respect them. Music festivals are the same story nobody's telling yet. Coachella, Lollapalooza, all the big ones are quietly downsizing stages and cutting headliners because the male ticket buyers disappeared. The guys who used to drop $1,500 on a weekend pass, VIP cabanas, and bottle service to chase women in flower crowns are now dropping that same money on a week in Medellin with the boys and coming home with better stories and more money left over. The festivals that survive are pivoting hard to female only lineups and safe space branding, which is code for: we know the men aren't coming back, so we'll sell empowerment illusions to women who still have credit left on their cards. Even the military is starting to feel it. Recruitment is in crisis across every Western country, and the ads have gone full rainbow propaganda, trying to attract women and inclusive men. The actual fighting force is still 90% plus male, but the new recruits are increasingly men who view the military as a paid apprenticeship in skills they can monetize later, not as lifelong patriotism. When the next real conflict pops off, the men who spent the last decade mastering crypto, fitness, and foreign languages are going to be conspicuously absent from the recruitment office. Good luck running a draft when half the eligible males already live in countries with no extradition treaty. The TradCon Cope is the funniest part of all this. You've got guys in bow ties on YouTube screaming that men need to man up and marry those single moms, while conveniently ignoring that the average single mom has higher body count than a rock band tour bus and more red flags than a Chinese military parade. Men aren't falling for it. They watch their dads and older brothers get financially annihilated in divorce court and decided the juice isn't worth the squeeze at any price, let alone the current asking price. The trad movement is a tiny echo chamber of guys trying to sell a fantasy to other guys who still believe the old script can be salvaged. The men who actually walked away don't even engage, they just keep walking. Crypto and decentralization are the silent accelerator nobody saw coming. Men are moving wealth offshore into cold storage, into assets that no family court can touch, no government can seize, no angry ex can claim half of. A 28-year-old man today can have 80% of his net worth in Bitcoin and Monero, live in a low-cost country, earn in dollars remotely, and pay less tax in a year than the average married guy pays in one child support payment. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's thousands of men doing it right now. The state can't stop it. The banks can't freeze it. And the X can't find it. Financial sovereignty is the final boss level upgrade of walking away. And men are speed running it. Women are still trying to figure out how to get their Venmo requests filled, while men are learning how to make their money disappear from every legacy system that wants a piece. And the beauty of all this is how little anger is actually involved. That's what scares people the most. They keep waiting for the explosion, the backlash, the violent revolution. It's never coming. Men didn't choose war, they chose exit. And exit is infinitely more powerful than violence because it can't be negotiated with, can't be arrested, can't be shamed, can't be guilted. You can't fight an enemy who isn't there. You can only watch him thrive somewhere else while your house burns down. The thriving is the part that keeps the cope machine working overtime. Every metric of male well-being is going up while female well-being craters. Male suicide rates are dropping for the first time in decades. Male life expectancy is stabilizing while female life expectancy falls. Male savings rates are skyrocketing. Male fitness levels are the highest ever recorded. Male friendship quality is through the roof. The only male demographic still struggling is the one that still follows the old script: married men with mortgages and wives who hate them. Every other male cohort is absolutely printing joy, wealth, and peace. Women feel this in real time and can't process it. They keep making videos asking, why are men so happy without us? As if the answer isn't staring them in the face. Men are happy without them because men were never the problem in the first place. The problem was the expectation that men should endure misery indefinitely for the privilege of being tolerated. Once that expectation was removed, men flourished immediately. Shocking. The final stage of grief for the old system is bargaining, and we're deep in it now. Sudden explosions of I'll cook and clean content from women who spent their 20s saying cooking is slavery. Mass profile edits removing independent from bios. Pastel filtered videos about submission from the same women who used to call it oppression. It's all bargaining, and it's all too late. The men who wanted that life already tried it and got burned. The men who never tried it looked at the ashes and said hard pass. There's no market left for the bargain. The new market price for access to a high value Western man is now so high that only a unicorn could pay it, and unicorns don't exist. The price is zero drama, zero entitlement, fitness, femininity, fertility, loyalty, gratitude, and a pleasant personality as the default setting. In other words, everything the average Western woman was taught to view as weakness. Good luck. So the men keep building private land purchases in red states, offshore companies, nomad visas, private schools, private security, private everything. The infrastructure of the new male civilization is already here. It's just invisible to anyone still plugged into the mainstream matrix. You won't see it on CNN. You won't see it on TikTok. You'll see it in the passport stamps, the gym calluses, the cold storage wallets, the private flight logs, the quiet Sunday barbecues with 20 guys and 0 women, where the only topic of conversation is who just hit a new deadlift PR or closed a 7-figure deal. That's the new normal, and it's spreading faster than any ideology ever spread because it doesn't require belief. It only requires execution. Lift, stack, learn, travel, protect the circle, repeat. No leaders, no hierarchy, no merchandise, no rallies, just millions of men running the same playbook and waking up happier every single day. The old world is going to keep screaming for a while. They'll pass laws, write articles, make documentaries, cry on podcasts, demand men come back and save the system that hated them. It's all noise. The men already left. They're not coming back. They don't need to. They won. And winning feels like waking up whenever you want, eating whatever you want, training however you want, spending your money however you want, traveling wherever you want, surrounding yourself with brothers who have your back, and never once explaining yourself to anyone who doesn't deserve the explanation. Like, that's not a fantasy. That's Tuesday for millions of men right now. And Tuesday is just getting started. You want to know what the final nail in the coffin looks like? It looks like a 32-year-old mechanic in Ohio who cleared $210K cash last year, owns his house outright, has a 700-pound deadlift, a walk-in humidor, a chest freezer full of Wagyu, and a group chat with 15 other guys who all make the same or more. None of them are married. None of them ever plan to be. They meet every Saturday morning in a private warehouse gym, train for 2 hours, grill ribeyes on a 60-inch Blackstone, talk markets and real estate, and which country has the best women this year, then go their separate ways until the next week. Zero drama, zero gossip, zero liability. That warehouse is a church, a bank vault, and a war room all at once, and there are thousands of them now across the West. That's the new male civilization in physical form. Quiet, armed with plates and crypto. Impossible to shame, impossible to tax, impossible to guilt-proof, and growing every single day. Women keep asking where the men went. The answer is they didn't go anywhere. They just stopped letting you into the places they built. The doors are closed. The passwords are changed. The guest list is locked. And the bouncers are 6'4" power lifters who don't care how much you cry on TikTok. You had 50 years to play nice. You chose contempt. The velvet rope went up permanently. And the beautiful thing is how little it took to flip the script. All men had to do was nothing. Literally nothing. Stop approaching. Stop dating. Stop spending, stop caring, stop arguing, stop explaining, stop defending, stop apologizing, just nothing. And in that nothing, they found everything. The absence of male effort turned out to be the most powerful force on earth. An entire civilization built on the assumption of endless male sacrifice discovered in real time what happens when the sacrifice becomes optional. It collapses. Fast. The collapse is accelerating now, because the feedback loops are vicious. Every man who walks away makes the dating market worse for the men still in it, which pushes more men out, which makes the market even worse, which pushes more out. Same with the economy. Every man who stops spending on women removes money from female-focused industries, which lays off women, which makes women poorer, which makes them even less attractive to the remaining men, which pushes more men out. Same with taxes. Every man who goes cash only, crypto only, or offshore starves or starve the state of revenue, which cuts the programs women were or are promised, which makes women angrier, which makes men walk faster. Every single variable feeds every other variable in the same direction. Male peace, female panic, system failure. There is no equilibrium coming back. There is only the widening gap. You can already see it in the birth rate maps. Entire regions of the West are literally dying. South Korea at 0.72 comma, Italy at 1.2 comma, Spain at 1.3 comma, Canada sliding under 1.4 comma, the United States barely clinging to 1.6 only because of immigration. These aren't numbers on a spreadsheet. These are civilizations committing suicide in slow motion because half the population decided the other half was obsolete and the other half finally agreed. The agreement is the part nobody wants to say out loud. Men didn't lose a war. They surrendered on purpose and discovered surrender was victory. The passport bros are just the visible tip of the spear. The real army is the guys who never leave their hometowns and still live better than anyone from 1995 could imagine. The quiet guy in the suburbs with the paid off house, the home gym, the smoker pit, the crypto stack, and the friend group that meets every Friday to smoke cigars and talk about how to buy another rental property. He never posts about it. He never argues online. He just lives. And there are millions of him. They're invisible to the algorithm because they don't need validation. They already have peace. That invisibility is the ultimate weapon. You can't fight what you can't see. Women are now resorting to open threats. Bills in multiple countries to tax bachelors, proposals to restrict male travel, articles calling for mandatory relationship counseling for single men, think pieces arguing that men choosing solitude is a form of terrorism. It's all theater. You can't legislate desire. You can't tax peace. You can't shame a man who already accepted every insult you ever threw at him and decided he likes himself anyway. The harder they swing, the faster men walk. And walking is getting easier every year. Remote work, crypto, AI side hustles, drop shipping, content creation, only trades, only fans for men. Yes, that's a thing now. Every single one of these is a male dominated space that women either can't or won't enter at scale. The new economy is being built by men for men with walls so high that even the most determined clout goblin can't climb them. The old economy, restaurants, retail, hospitality, higher education, legacy media, is dying because it was built on female consumption funded by male sacrifice. The new economy runs on male competence funded by male self-interest. One is collapsing, the other is mooning. Even crime is shifting in ways nobody predicted. Urban violent crime is down in many cities not because of policing, but because the primary demographic that commits it, young, single males, suddenly has better options. A 24-year-old man with a $90K remote tech job, a home gym, and a PlayStation isn't out at 2 a.m. looking for trouble. He's asleep by 10 p.m., so he can wake up and lift at 5 a.m. The guys who used to rob liquor stores are now day trading meme coins and pulling 5 figures a month. Peace pays better than chaos when you remove female chaos from the equation. The state hates this, of course. A calm, wealthy, healthy, childless male population is a nightmare for any government that runs on debt and division. So expect more propaganda, more attempts at control, more desperate plays for male labor and male taxes. None of it will work. The genie is out of the bottle and he's twice as big as he was when he went in. You don't stuff freedom back into a cage once it's tasted fresh air. The next 10 years are going to be the great sorting. Men who get it will finish building their fortresses and disappear into them. Men who don't will stay behind and become the new serfs paying for the collapse. Women will split into 3 groups: the tiny minority who adapt and meet the new market price, fit, feminine, pleasant, loyal; the larger group who move abroad and try to compete in foreign markets. Most will fail, and the majority who stay demand the state save them and slowly discover the state is a corpse being eaten by vultures wearing pantsuits. The men who get it won't hate any of these groups. They won't celebrate the downfall. They won't gloat. They'll just keep living because hate requires emotional investment, and they already cashed that investment out and bought peace with the proceeds. That's the part that will haunt the old world forever. Men didn't destroy the system out of revenge. They destroyed it by refusing to participate in it anymore. The system destroyed itself the moment male participation became optional. Everything happening now, the panic, the collapse, the begging, the cope, is just the death rattle of a machine that ran out of fuel and doesn't yet realize the fuel is never coming back. Now, the fuel is on a beach in Bali right now, drinking a coconut, deadlifting a local girl who smiles when he walks in the room, and checking his portfolio on a phone with no SIM card the government can track. The fuel is in a private warehouse gym in Texas, adding another plate to the bar while 20 brothers spot him and cheer. The fuel is in a paid off house in the Midwest, cooking steak on a weekday because tomorrow is Saturday, and every day is Saturday when you own your time. The fuel is gone, and it's never coming back. All that's left now is the new world rising out of the ashes of the old one, built by men for men, with peace as the foundation and brotherhood as the walls. No gates, no guards, no drama, just millions of men living the way men were always meant to live when nobody was holding a gun to their head and calling it love. That world is already here. You're either in it or you're not. Most men reading this are already in it. They just didn't realize how many brothers were already inside with them until they looked up from the barbell and saw the room was full. Welcome home, kings. The war is over. You won. Now go live like it. Imagine it's 2032. You're standing in what used to be downtown Seattle, Portland, Toronto, London, Sydney, any of the big Western cities. The skyline is still there, but half the glass towers are dark at night because the companies that used to fill them either went remote or went broke. The streets that used to pulse with Friday night energy are quiet, except for the occasional pack of women in going out tops taking selfies in front of murals that say, "The future is female." The murals are peeling now. The restaurants that used to have 2-hour waits have 4 lease signs and dust on the host stand. The gyms that used to blast EDM and sell $12 smoothies are boarded up years ago. There's still traffic, but it's mostly delivery vans and Ubers driven by women who used to call themselves influencers. The men are simply gone, not dead, not hiding, just gone from the places the old world expected them to be. Where are they? Some of them are 200 miles outside the city limits on 5 and 10-acre compounds they bought for cash during the 2026-2028 crash. Compounds with solar roofs, Starlink dishes, private wells, and gates that don't open for anyone who doesn't know the handshake. Some of them are in Thailand, Colombia, Poland, Philippines, living in penthouses that cost less per month than the old world's car payment. Some of them never left their hometowns. They just turned their basements into fortresses, their garages into gyms, their spare bedrooms into crypto mining rigs, and their weekends into brotherhood barbecues where the only rule is no drama ever. All of them are healthy, wealthy, in ways that don't show up on paper the government can see, armed with skills and rifles and brotherhood, and sleeping better than any generation of men in history. And every single one of them is living proof that the biggest lie ever told was that men need the system more than the system needs men. Turns out it was the other way around the whole time. The system is now a corpse still twitching because nobody has the guts to call the time of death yet. The universities are half empty, running on government loans that will never be repaid by graduates who can't find jobs. The military can't fill a single boot camp class without lowering standards so far that the recruits can't run a mile. The tax base is collapsing because the men who used to pay 80% of it either went cash only, crypto only, offshore, or simply stopped earning enough fiat to be worth taxing. The welfare rolls are exploding, but the money isn't there because the men who used to fund it walked away. The debt is unpayable, the currency is debasing in real time, and the only thing holding the facade together is the hope that men will feel guilty and come back to save the day. They're not coming back. They're too busy living. Living looks like waking up at whatever time your body wants because your remote tech job pays in USDC and your side hustle in construction cash pays the groceries. Living looks like deadlifting 600 pounds raw at 9 a.m. with 10 brothers spotting you while the group chat blows up with screenshots of Bitcoin hitting another all-time high. Living looks like flying to Buenos Aires for a month because flights were cheap and the women still smile when you hold the door. Living looks like grilling Wagyu on a Tuesday because tomorrow isn't a work day when you own your time. Living looks like having actual brothers who would bury a body for you and never once asking them to, because you don't need to. The trust is that deep. Living looks like looking in the mirror at 40 and realizing you're in better shape, richer, calmer, and freer than you were at 25 when you were still trying to impress women who hated you. That's not hyperbole. That's the default setting for millions of men right now, and the number grows every single day. The women who spent the 2010s and early 2020s screaming, "We don't need men," are now in their mid 30s and 40s, staring at walls full of framed degrees that buy less than a Costco rotisserie chicken, scrolling through feeds full of other women pretending to be happy, and discovering that cats don't fix plumbing and followers don't pay rent. The ones who still have jobs are one AI upgrade away from being replaced. The ones who don't are on OnlyFans competing with free AI generations that never age and never nag. The ones who thought the government would ride to the rescue watch the government default on its promises in slow motion and then blame misogyny for the bankruptcy. They're not evil. They're just late to the realization that contempt has a price tag and the bill always comes due. Late to the understanding that male sacrifice wasn't oppression. It was the greatest subsidy in human history, and subsidies end when the supplier figures out he's getting ripped off. Late to the fact that you can't insult, exploit, and criminalize an entire gender for 50 years, and then act shocked when that gender calmly withdraws its labor, attention, protection, and wallet. You can't negotiate with peace. You can't shame freedom. You can't guilt trip a man who already made peace with being called every name in the book and decided he likes the sound of silence better. The silence is the masterpiece, not screaming, not protesting, not begging, silence. Millions of men living their best lives without a single word of explanation to the people who spent decades telling them they were worthless. That silence is louder than any explosion could ever be. It's the sound of a civilization dying not with a bang, but with a shrug. And on the other side of that shrug is the new world. A world where men build for men. A world where competence is currency and peace is non negotiable. A world where brotherhood is thicker than blood and loyalty is earned, not demanded. A world where a man's word is still his bond because there's no court system waiting to punish him for keeping it. A world where fitness is mandatory, wealth is quiet, and freedom is the default setting. A world where the only women allowed in are the ones who bring peace instead of chaos. And even they know the price of entry went up permanently. That world isn't coming, it's already here. You're either living in it or you're still pretending the old one isn't dead. Most men reading this are living in it. They just didn't realize the scale until right now. You're not alone. You're not early. You're not late. You're exactly on time. The table was set years ago by the first guys who had the balls to walk away and never look back. Every day you choose peace over chaos, you add another chair to that table. Every dollar you keep instead of spend on female approval adds another plate. Every rep in the gym adds another brick to the wall. Every brother you bring in makes the circle stronger. This isn't a movement. This isn't a phase. This isn't coping. This is the new default setting for masculinity in the 21st century and beyond. The old world can keep the cathedrals, it turned into nightclubs. We'll keep the warehouses where men become legends at 5 a.m. The old world can keep the tax plantations and the divorce courts. We'll keep the crypto keys and the passports. The old world can keep the HR departments and the sensitivity training. We'll keep the brotherhood and the deadlifts. The old world can keep the applause of strangers who hate them. We'll keep the respect of brothers who would die for us. All roads lead to MWA. Men walking away didn't just walk away from women. They walked away from everything that hated them. The jobs that owned them, the government that robbed them, the culture that shamed them, the script that broke them. They walked towards something better and they found it. And they found peace. They found purpose. They found brotherhood. They found themselves. And once a man finds himself, nobody can ever sell him a lie again. That's the real victory. Not the money, not muscles, not passport stamps, not even the silence of the women who finally ran out of insults. The victory is the man in the mirror who finally likes what he sees. The man who wakes up owning his time, his money, his body, his mind, his future. The man who no longer asks permission to exist. That man is unstoppable. That man is you. That man is millions of us, and we're just getting started. And so keep lifting, keep stacking, keep walking, keep building, keep laughing in the group chats while the old world burns its last tank of borrowed money trying to guilt you into coming back. We're not coming back. We're too busy living. Living looks different for every man, but it has the same ingredients: peace, brotherhood, competence, freedom, seasoned to taste. The recipe is simple, the results are undeniable, and the table is open to every man willing to pay the cover charge in discipline and self-respect. There's always room for one more. Welcome home, King. Now go live like the war is already won, because it is. And the prize wasn't revenge. The prize was peace. And peace, brother, is absolutely priceless. What did you think about all this? Do you see it now the way I see it, or is something still holding you back? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Like the video, if it hit you in the chest, don't forget to subscribe. And if this one rewired your brain, please share it with every man who still needs to hear it. All roads lead to MWA, men walking away, and cheers.
Nothing says you care like crypto. Nothing can compare. Nothing says you care like crypto. Oh, nothing can compare to crypto.